One of the tools that I've been using and kind of helping people out with as they are growing their business and trying to figure out what they want to do is something called a one-page plan, where you can essentially have everything that you want to do within the next year all in front of you on a one-page plan. So this might be an example of what a one-page plan might look like, where you got your core values and your long-term vision, midterm vision, some focuses for the year, your KPIs. And then what I really do is what I really kind of dig into is an implementation schedule. So not necessarily because a lot of times I think we do goal setting, it's a lot of like, hey, here's what I want to do, but there's a little bit lacking on like how are we going to do it or when are we going to do it or when it needs to get done by or prioritizing and things. So this is a tool that I've used before. And I think Matt, we might have talked about this on one of the last calls, but this is a one-page plan that I like to utilize. And this gets a little robust. This is a whole plan for a whole year that we can dig into. What I want to talk about today is let's get a little bit simpler with it. Let's kind of break it down a little bit. Let's not focus on a whole year because that can be daunting. Let's focus on what something might look like for the next 90 days. So how can we work on what can we put a plan together for essentially the next 90 days, October, November, December, to roll through to know kind of what's going on. So this is essentially a simplified version of my one-page plan, but broken down into the next 90 days or 12 weeks. Our end goal today, what we're going to get to is talking through how you guys can utilize something like this. And I have a sample. Matt, I told you that I'll send it over to you guys as basically a document that you can give it out to everybody and stuff as well, that they can utilize this and use this tool and stuff. But what we want to get through today is how do we get to something like this? So how can you figure out where you are in your business or even life or anything like that to get to the point where, hey, what am I going to focus on for the next 90 days and break it down into a table, something like this. So this is what we're going to get to. I'm going to take you guys through a couple tools, couple exercises that I like to do, and I like to work with teams on as I'm doing some coaching and planning and stuff like that to get people to this point where they can utilize a 90-day plan. And it's going to take you through some stuff to get you back down to where we can fill in that 90-day plan. We're just going to start with, we want to evaluate your business. If you want to be a real estate investor, that's a business. That is a business. If you haven't done a deal yet, you still have a business. You have a business that's in the works. And we got to figure out what we can do to get to that one deal. Or if you've already done one deal, two deals, how do we get to 10 deals, whatever that may be? That is your business. We want to take you basically evaluate that. So some really simple questions for yourself. One of the things you can ask is just like, hey, what did you achieve in the last 90 days? If we're going to reflect on what we're going to do in the next 90 days, let's reflect on what we did in the last 90 days. Did you set some goals for yourself? That might be the first question. Or, hey, did you reach all the goals that you hit over the last 90 days or that you set for yourself? What did your biggest deal look like? What did your best deal look like? What did the one deal that you did look like? Any of those things. How many mailers did you send out? How many how many DealMachine properties did you add to your system? Whatever it may be. How many texts did you send? So evaluate, what did you achieve over the last 90 days? Next question you want to ask yourself is basically, where did you fall short? If you get to the point and you are answering, hey, I didn't fall short. I hit all my goals. I did everything. Your goals are a little too low. I'm going to say push those goals a little bit and kind of maybe up the ante a little bit. So where did you fall short over the last 90 days? Your next thing you're going to ask yourself is basically like, what do you want to do? What do you want your revenue goal to be in the next 90 days? Maybe it's one deal at this amount of profit. Maybe it's not, maybe you don't even have a monetary number. Maybe there's not a dollar amount to it. Maybe it is just one deal and that's what you want to do, whether it may be. If you're consistently doing some deals here and there, what is that revenue goal that you want to hit? And then I always like to throw this in there as well. What area do you want to grow over the next 90 days? So, hey, we're going to do some deals, we're going to make some money, whatever that may be, but where do you want to grow? Maybe it's on the personal side. A lot of times I work with a lot of different leaders and things like that. A lot of the stuff they're going through, a lot of things that they maybe want to grow in has nothing to do with real estate. It has to do with personal life, physical things. Also, make sure you take some time too to just brain dump all those things. Hey, what are some opportunity? What are all those things that you lay in bed and think about at night, or you think about in the shower, or wherever it may be, opportunities or challenges or issues or projects. Not saying you have to tackle all of them over the next 90 days, but you might tackle some of them in the future. You may reach out and hit some different things and stuff like that. Make sure you're spending some time on that, of just taking that brain dump and making a list of all those things. It might end up being a checklist or might be some of the things that you do focus on for those next 90 days. Make sure you're taking some time to evaluate kind of where you are right now within your business and what happened in the last 90 days and some things you want to do for the next 90 days in the future. Next thing, when we look at a business, kind of break down a business within really kind of 6 different departments of what we're looking at. And if you're a solopreneur out there, you have these 6 different departments. You're just running all these 6 different departments. You're involved in all these things. You're wearing all these hats and things. But the things you're always looking at is leadership, marketing, sales, your processes and systems, your talent, and finances. So you're always looking at those things. Now, if you're looking at your business and you want to set some goals for the next 90 days, a good thing to be is like, where do you stand on all this stuff? Where do you stand? And I always like to go through an exercise of basically just rating myself or rating my business on where I stand within all these things. I like to do a simple like 1 to 5 rating scale. So 1 being kind of hey, I need a lot of trouble, or I'm in a lot of trouble with this, or it's super low, I need a lot of help here. Or 5, be like, man, I'm in really good shape. Man, I got this down. I'm doing super well with this. We're exceeding our expectations, all those types of things. So evaluating yourself on a 1 to 5 scale, where is your leadership right now? Maybe it's just you. Are you leading yourself? Are you leading your family? How are you doing with leadership right now? Maybe you have a virtual assistant on your team. Maybe you have an EA, any of the things. How are you doing with your leadership? And then what is the reason why? So whatever you rate yourself in there, make sure you're putting down the reason why you're rating yourself as that. Same thing with marketing. Okay. How you doing with marketing? You guys are on this call. You have an amazing tool right now that you can utilize for marketing, whether it's getting, skip tracing, getting phone numbers to call, text, or sending out postcards, whatever it may be, or letters. You guys have an amazing marketing tool. So how are you doing with that marketing tool? What would that rating be? Same thing with sales. Don't just focus on the acquisition side, also focus on the dispo side. You just focus as much on that, getting the properties under contract as working that dispo side as well. Something to consider there. So what do you rate yourself on sales? And then what's the reason for that? Your processes and systems. This is something that I think is super important. It's something that it gets overlooked. It's not as sexy as sales or marketing or anything like that, but I think it's super important. Your systems and processes are really important. Are you doing the same? Can you basically repeat what you're doing over and over? So even if it's like, hey, my goal is to DealMachine 50 properties a week, how are you doing that? What's your process for that? Is that just going out randomly, driving for dollars and putting properties into your system, and then, hey, when are you going to mail them? Whatever it is, make sure you're kind of have a system for that. Have a process for how you're doing that. Of, hey, today I'm going to focus on this neighborhood. I'm going to get 20 properties in my system, and then the next day I'm going to send out postcards to all those people, whatever it may be. Put that in there. And then I would really recommend, as you're doing that process or system, I'd recommend documenting it in some way, whether you're writing down a checklist or jumping on something like Zoom or Loom and recording yourself on how you're doing it is really, really important. Because down the road, number one, you can see how you did something again, or down the road, maybe you hire a virtual assistant to help yourself out, or you hire an assistant or a lead manager or an acquisitions person. Even you have all that stuff already documented and it's there, so the training becomes a lot easier and the onboarding becomes a lot easier for them. Same thing with talent. So talent is kind of like, maybe you don't have any team members, maybe you don't have any employees underneath you or virtual assistants underneath me or anything, but you are the talent. Okay. Or do you have all the tools that you need to be able to do what you need to do? So do you have all the training that you need? Do you have all the skills that you need to be able to do what you're working on? Last thing is finances. So do you have your financials in order? Do you have a budget set for what you want to be able to do? If you want to send out so many postcards through DealMachine, do you have enough money to be able to do that for 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever that may be, so you can be consistent with it? The people that maybe they say that you don't need any money, I kind of disagree with that a little bit. I always think you need some money to be able to do real estate and be successful with this, but being able to have a certain budget that you can work within. And a lot of times with, it come back to the marketing and how it works with finances, of being able to, it's usually not that first postcard that you send out to somebody that you might get a deal off of, but it's usually like maybe the 5th or 6th time that, the 6th time they see that cat picture. That might be the 6th time, like, oh, this is another cat person. I need to talk to this person. So making sure you have the budget and finances in place. I'd really recommend kind of as you are going through and trying to figure out what you want to do for yourself or for your business over the next 90 days, I would take some time and evaluate where you are in each of these categories. I figure out, through all the teams I work with, really when you kind of break down a business, these are kind of the 6 different departments or 6 different areas that always need to be evaluated, even if you are a business of yourself by yourself. So, and then making sure you write down the reasons that you're kind of giving yourself a rating and stuff too. That way you know what to work on. And then I got one more for you. This is actually my favorite. I think this is kind of the maybe the simplest version. And when I'm working with other people, this kind of makes the most sense to a lot of people too. So this is kind of my favorite version to evaluate these different departments and stuff within a business. It's called a start, stop, continue. When it comes to leadership, what's something that you'd want to start doing? What's something you need to stop doing? What's something you want to continue doing? Maybe you want to start listening to a leadership podcast from John Maxwell. Well, stop doing. Well, I need to stop watching Netflix every night before I go to bed because then I stay up late and I watch too many episodes or whatever it may be. Hey, I need to continue jumping on these Wednesday webinars with DealMachine because they bring so much value and things like that. So that's something I'm going to continue doing because that's really helping out my leadership style. Same thing with marketing. What's something you need to start doing, stop doing, continue doing. This is a really good exercise, kind of going through all these departments and kind of giving yourself a task list of all those things that like, hey, I need to start doing this. I need to stop doing this and I need to continue doing this. And then what we're going to do with this, how this leads into kind of that 90-day plan is essentially when you start going through here and start putting in, let's say you do a start, stop, continue, and you have these, now you have 6 things that you need to start doing, 6 things you need to stop doing, 6 things you need to continue doing. You can't start doing those all at once. So now you need to start prioritizing of like, okay, what's next? What do I want to focus on right now? What's the number one priority? What's the number two priority? And kind of putting those in there. So when you go through exercises like this, you go through goal setting, there's gonna be a lot of things you want to do, but then it comes down to like kind of prioritizing and figuring out what you want to do first or last on that prioritization list. I'm going to move on to just another tool that I think is really, really invaluable. So got this from Dan Martell out of Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. I think tools like this is stuff that's changed my life and made myself, was able to put myself in a position where I can focus on what makes me the most money at any given time and what kind of brings me joy as well and stuff. So this is just what we call an elevate delegate. If you make a list of all the things that you are doing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, or all the things that take up the most amount of your time, they're going to fit into one of 4 categories. Those categories are basically, you need to basically, it makes you money, but it drains your energy, meaning that like, hey, you're getting something out of it, but you don't like doing it. It's not that much fun. Those are the things that kind of fall into the category. We like to say like, hey, we're going to replace ourselves with this. It's going to make me money, but I don't like doing it. It drains my energy. So I'm going to see if I can replace myself in doing that. Another one is we're going to basically use one category of where it doesn't make you any money and it drains your energy. How many of the things are you doing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis that basically you don't get any results from it and you don't like doing it? That's the stuff you need to get off your plate right away. Next thing, kind of coming into this. So you might also have, so you have the things that make you money, but drain your energy, or it doesn't make you any money, but drains your energy, or it makes you a lot of money and then lights you up. Or the other category would be like, basically it makes you a little bit of money and lights you up. So what you want to do by going through an exercise similar to this or something like this, going through the things that you're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, you're going to realize what you should focus your time on, what you should spend your time on, and what you need to get off your plate. Maybe it's hiring a virtual assistant to do it for you. Maybe it's having a family member help you out for a little bit, whatever it may be, but you know what to get off your plate so you can focus on what's going to make you the most amount of money. And so you can enjoy yourself and continue going with what you need to do. So as I'm going through all these things, so, hey, I've evaluated what I want to do over the next 90 days and what I did the last 90 days. I've evaluated like kind of where I am within my departments through these different exercises, things like that. I figured out kind of what I need to get off my plate and what I need to spend the most amount of time on. The next thing I'm always doing is I'm trying to figure out, I'm pulling out the main things from there, maybe 3 to 4 or 5 things. I probably left too many lines on here because really you should only focus on a handful of things at a time. But I'm going to put those things on here that I really want to focus on. And I'm going to, I consider those areas of improvement, those things I want to do over the next 90 days. If I need to improve in a certain area, it's usually one of 3 problems. It's either a process problem, it's a training problem, or a people problem. So I'm going to try to kind of figure out what category do those fall into and figure out if I need to develop a process around something, if I need to get better training on it or train somebody else better on it, or if I need to network and connect with people or hire people or whatever it may be. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these areas for improvement, and I know kind of what I focus or what that is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out, okay, here's what I want to focus on for the next 90 days. Then I'm going to say, when I finish that, what does that look like? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of all the things that I need to do before it's finished. So before I get to the definition of done, what are all the things that I need to do before I can finish? Then I'm going to say, okay, after I finish it, what are all the things that need to happen next? Then I'm also going to say, what month do I need to finish it, or what week do I need to finish this in? And then basically, how's this going to affect my revenue? How's this going to affect my bottom line? How's this going to, maybe it's not necessarily your bank account, but how's it going to affect your life? I consider that life revenue as well, kind of filling your cup. And then also, who is responsible for it? Then what I do with that is I take that and I put it into an implementation schedule. So here's my thing. Here's my focus. I'm going to hire an executive assistant. Here's what I'm going to do week 1 of Q4. Here's what I'm going to do week 2. Here's what I'm going to do week 3. Here's what I'm going to do week 4. Week 5, 6 through 9, I'm going to be focused on this, on interviewing and finding candidates. And then here's what I'm going to do week 10. Here's when I'm going to make the hire. And then here's what's going to happen next. When I look at this, kind of the beauty behind this is it's going to tell me what I'm going to focus on each of these weeks. And that way when I get to the end of the quarter, hopefully I have accomplished each of these things as long as I stay on schedule. The whole point of this a little bit is going through this 90-day plan. Don't just set goals and leave them there. Set the implementation schedule and the execution schedule for yourself to go out there and attack these goals. This right here, if you can fill something like this out, when you get to this point and you have this implementation schedule when you're going to do things, if you stick to it, you're going to crush a lot of goals.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.